Let's talk today about 3 things that I didn't know or certainly didn't expect when I moved here to Florida. These are things that I have not heard other creators talking about, and they've given me some really fantastic and invaluable insight on things to expect and things maybe not to expect when I get here. But I haven't heard these 3 things. Now, they're not huge shockers. I'm not going to pretend that they will be earth-shattering, but they really are insightful, and they certainly were for me, and I hope they are for you. Welcome back to Fab 50s, everyone, where I'm discussing my journey moving from New York to Florida and talking about how we can build a community together of other transplants, of maybe people who want to be transplants, and trying to connect with people on a deeper level about ways that we can support each other. So let's get started. And I do want to say that I don't like to look at the camera when I'm driving because I like to focus on my driving. I'm in my fantastic convertible, which is really the absolute cherry on top when we moved to Florida, that I said, if we're going to be in the Sunshine State, I want to enjoy the sunshine, driving or not. So let's take a ride in my convertible. I will not be looking at the camera when we're talking, but let's take a deep dive into the 3 things that I wish I knew, or at least the 3 things that I didn't expect coming from New York and moving here to Florida. Let's get into it. So let's dive right in and talk about the dreaded HOA fees. Dum-da-dum. I fully expected to have to pay HOA fees or homeowners association fees when we moved here. That's not the shock. There was no one pulled the wool over my eyes. There was no misunderstanding. I fully understood what we were getting into. We did a lot of research before we moved here on HOA fees. We didn't have them in New York. They're certainly not that common. And I actually don't know anyone who paid HOA fees in New York at all. Not to say that they didn't exist, but they certainly do not exist the way that they do here in Florida. And we knew that depending on the neighborhood that we were moving into, if we moved into anything new, we for sure were going to be paying HOA fees. Again, we knew that. We did a lot of research on the development, on the area, on the neighborhoods that we were moving into, and when we applied for our mortgage, of course the HOA fees are taken into consideration because that's a monthly fee that you have to pay every month. We do have a lot that's covered by our fees, and we're more than happy to pay it because then these are things that we don't have to do, like landscaping. Thank you, I don't want to landscape anymore. We had a big yard in New York and that was a lot of work. So it's not that it doesn't cover a lot, and it's not that we are grumbling about having to pay it, and I'm certainly not. And I'm not misled by where the money goes. I don't think anyone is doing anything nefarious with the money. I don't think there's anything wrong with our HOA. I think we actually have a fantastic HOA. My point is, when we moved in, and I have not even been here 3 years. When we moved in, it was a certain amount, and as of the beginning of this year, it has doubled. Less, if you just shave off $5, literally doubled. So that's shocking. We fully understood and expected that every year the fees might go up, there would be increases, everything costs more money, like we get that. However, to double the amount is it's a lot to swallow, it's a lot to budget for. There are a lot of people in our neighborhood who are really upset about it, and some people maybe who are financially struggling who can't afford it. And quite frankly, yeah, I get it. And again, this isn't about not paying for value. We certainly should be. We have, again, our HOA spends their money responsibly. Everything is taken care of. That's not the point. The point is that I never expected for an HOA fee to double in 3 years. I've never heard that. I've never heard any other people who moved to Florida or any other content creators talking about it. So it was a blow. It was a blow for sure. It was a blow to the budget. It was a blow to my mindset and understanding, wow, okay, what the heck is going on here? So that was just a lot. So to sum up, HOA fees are not unexpected. HOA fee increases are not unexpected. However, to double HOA fees, that was something that we certainly didn't expect. A lot of that had to do with insurance costs rising and other services, the prices rising. So I get it. Still a shock. Still something I didn't know and I never expected. Certainly not in 3 years. Number 2, what I didn't expect I work from home, and when we were in New York, I worked in an office. I worked in an office building, in an office space, and I own my own business. So when we moved here, we bought a space that was big enough so I had a home office. And we knew that we were going to be making the transition for me to work from home. Fantastic office setup. It's nothing to complain about there. I work solo. I do have one person that works with me, but a lot of that work is remote or can be done on the telephone, sometimes in person, but mostly it's me working alone. And that's how it was in the office as well. However, I got to go to the office. Having a home office is a lot more isolating and a lot more lonely than I realized it would be. Again, still working alone, but going to an office every day in New York, there were other people in my suite, there were other people in the office building, there were other colleagues that I could speak to, that I could bounce ideas off of, even though they weren't working at my firm, even though we didn't do the same exact thing. It was still, it was just refreshing to have somebody to talk to, go over the day, problem solve, network with together. And then we moved here, and it was a lot of the same things via Zoom, but I couldn't just sit around the water cooler. I didn't just run down to the cafe and get lunch. I didn't just sit around and have a coffee clutch with some people in the office building. I'm all alone. It's just me and my dog and the cats, and I didn't quite expect it to be so isolating. I'm a very social person, and I like being out and about and talking to people. So that was a shock. It was, I don't know if shock is the right word, because I did try to prepare myself for it, but it was just, I guess I didn't expect it to be so, I didn't expect the feeling of loneliness in my workspace to be so palpable, to be so tangible. So if you work from home, I'd love to hear from you what your solution is for that, what your thoughts are on that, and how you maybe get around that. Who do you talk to? How do you connect with people on a deeper meaning, on a deeper level in order to combat that feeling of just working completely all alone from morning to night, and then trying to get everything done in a vacuum. I don't know. That's just a challenge that I have faced, and I guess I didn't quite expect it to be as challenging as it is. And then the third thing, I will say, I did do a lot of research on where we live, and I love where we live. I don't know that I could love it more. I'm not really sure that I could. However, I did move here in part to be close to Disney. And I knew specifically that I didn't want to necessarily live in the vacation bubble, right? I didn't want to live 10 minutes away from Disney where there was just so much traffic and we'd have to hear the fireworks all the time. Windsor would not have done well with the fireworks every night. But I wanted to live close enough where we could drive over at night for dinner, or where I could just take a break in the middle of the day and go. Fully did my research. I understand how far I live, how long it would take me, all of that. Between 25 and 30 minutes, let's just say half an hour. So it's a half an hour for me door to door to get to Disney, to get to Magic Kingdom. It depends on where you're going, but let's just say Magic Kingdom. A half an hour, that's nothing. Okay, great. I mean, I've taken longer lunches in New York, so I've taken longer to commute to a lunch in New York. So that really wasn't the challenge. The challenge is now it's 30 minutes for me to get to the parking lot. Then you have to get on the boat or the monorail to get over to Magic Kingdom. Then you spend however long you're going to spend there, and then you come back. But by the time I leave my house to actually get into the park, it's not a half an hour. And of course I knew that, but sometimes you don't think about it and you don't really put the time frame together, because I'm going to take 30 minutes to drive to the parking lot. Now I stop my car in the parking lot, and now I have to get out. Now I have to walk up to the monorail. Now I have to wait for the monorail. Now I have to take the monorail over. That's another half an hour on its own. If I feel like walking, depending on the path, depending on if there's any construction, you can. But again, that's another half an hour, 45 minutes, which, not complaining. But now if we're talking about an hour to get to the park and an hour back, am I doing that for an hour in the middle of the day? 2 hours? Are we doing that? at night, sometimes that's a big deterrent. Sometimes it is. when we have reservations at one of the resorts on the monorail line, if we have, say, dinner reservations over at the Contemporary, Steakhouse 71, great restaurant, that's great, because then we park at Steakhouse 71, we have our dinner, and it's usually, I mean, their service is very quick, fantastic. Can't recommend that restaurant enough. But then we can just walk over or hop on the monorail and head over to Magic Kingdom just for a little while, and then we come back. The parking at the parks is clearly for a reason, obviously, because they get thousands and thousands of people that come in there every day, so they need enough room. But for the pass holders and people who live here, not having that convenient parking, like right there, just to kind of pop in and go on a few rides, spend a little bit of money, and leave. I guess I didn't quite expect it to be that, right? I knew there were no parking lots right there, right? That would be nice. I mean, Disney, if you take any recommendations, maybe pass holders should have separate parking lots. They should have separate trams, whatever it is. I think we should get better treatment when it comes to parking. However, that's neither here nor there. I knew that. I guess I just didn't realize it on a day-to-day level, right? Being here, sometimes we're walking around after dinner and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I really just want to go to Hollywood Studios and hang out for a little while. Yeah, that's a 2-hour commute. Again, the 30 minutes there, the 30 minutes back, and then the 30 minutes between the car and the park. So do I want to spend that 2 hours and then the time in the park? Sometimes I'm exhausted after my lonely day at the office by myself. And it's just something to think about. Something that I hadn't really anticipated. So those are the three things that I didn't know about until I actually lived it. So the doubling of the HOA fees, that feeling of isolation, working alone, and not being quite close enough to the parks to satisfy my Disney itch. Those were my 3 unexpecteds. If anyone here has any other suggestions on ways that maybe I can overcome those things, I guess there's not much you could do about my HOA fees, but certainly about the loneliness, maybe even other suggestions about finding ways to cut some of my commute time down to the parks, that would be great. But also, I'd love to hear about your challenges, things that maybe you didn't expect, things that you didn't know were going to be the way they were when you moved from wherever you moved from to here, or even somewhere else. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, everyone. And the one thing that never fails to bring me joy is my convertible and these blue skies and these fluffy white clouds. So thanks again for joining on Fab 50s Florida, and we'll see you next time.